All right. It looks like we're live. We got the G4 podcast today. We got Rocky Road down in Texas. We got Mr. Car Guy online. We got JB holding it down. You got myself. Today, we're going to try to be more efficient. We got some big topics we want to discuss with you guys. A lot of things happen. We're hearing your comments. We want to hit the ground running today. And I know where we want to start because Car Guy Online wants to hammer right from the beginning. So let's get this rolling. So we've all been seeing the topics. Everything's been running. Doesn't matter the brand, it seems like right now. Toyota used to be reliable, Honda, everything. It seems across the board, everybody's having issues. I got to let you, Car Guy, start with this. Are modern engines unreliable?
Yeah. Pretty, I think, more unreliable than they used to be for various reasons, but we can go through the group here and say why. I think that there are only really two manufacturers right now in trucks, half-ton trucks or three-quarter ton, that I would even look at. Maybe GM for three-quarter ton, but I think Ford and Ram are the only two platforms I would look at right now for reliability. It's really... I would stay away from GM62, stay away from their 3-liter Duramax, stay away from Toyota until they get their issues figured out. And I mean, we're talking millions of vehicles recalled. I don't know how else to look at it other than wait and see what happens with those brands and target the ones that don't have those problems right now. So yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, what do you think, Rocky?
I think I stand behind him on the same thing. You know, I think it's just right now, pick the ones that are doing well. You know, that there's brands out there right now that got hits against them for engine and transmission issues. You know, and even like the Toyota market having some issues with some engines. I mean, it's across the board, a lot of them. But yeah, it's kind of hit or miss. But you know, pretty much these days with whatever you buy, I recommend the extended warranty. I think that ESP plan for $1,500 or $2,000 when you're buying these vehicles is worth every penny.
It's almost you're taking a gamble not to. It's like I wouldn't tell anybody now to buy a vehicle, anything in the last 10 years at least. How about you, JB? Uh-oh, you're muted. Hold on. Let me see. Unmute. There we go.
Thank you. There's probably a day coming where the extended warranty won't be available.
Yeah.
But I have to agree. I think that if I were buying a truck right now, you'd be rolling the dice on that Tundra engine, what is it called? The V35 or whatever.
Yep.
You'd be rolling the dice, and obviously with the diesel, I've seen 2 of them in the shop, 2025s this year, down for mechanical failure. So I'm a diesel fanboy. I would still go ahead and get it. But yeah, you're rolling the dice there. So Rocky, you're right. Get that extended warranty because you probably need it.
Yeah.
And y'all, for what that costs, I mean, you talk about a set of cam phasers, or you talk about, you know, one service hit will pay for that warranty.
100%.
And while the warranty is as reasonable as it is today, but like you just said a minute ago, those are probably going to go up as more of these problems increase, kind of like insurance rates.
Yeah, Esther here with the 10-year, 100,000 mile. This is why I'm surprised Ram isn't outpacing everybody right now with sales just because of the warranty.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting. I mean, they got some room to catch up from the last year and a half. You know, they dug a hole. It looks like they're digging their way out of it right now. But if they keep this up and the competitors don't include 100,000 mile warranty and the discounts they're offering right now, and it seems like you're hearing more and more information right now that the Hurricane's getting more and more accolades and the Hemi's out, so that excuse is gone. Yeah, I'm with you. So I would agree with you guys. I thought Toyota was solid, but there was always a caveat that drove me crazy about the Toyota thing. The fact that the hybrid engine was excluded from the recall just because if the engine failed during an intersection, it could get you across the road, but it's the exact same engine that will have the failure. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way from the very beginning. I'm like, that's not right. And then now it sounds like maybe that could get opened up to other years. And now we're hearing, isn't there grumblings about the 6.2 being opened up to more years being included?
Yes. Yeah.
That's just discouraging. It's because arguably, I don't know your guys' opinions, but I think in the affordable, half-ton V8 class in the half-ton. I think the 6.2, if the motor's not burning oil, lifter tick, connecting rod failures, I think it's the best V8 in the half-ton segment. That's my opinion. I like the performance and I like the fuel economy.
Yeah, I don't like the lifters.
Yeah.
To make it the engine I would want, you have to spend thousands of dollars to get those lifters out. And
yeah,
no matter what anybody says, you can't delete the lifter, the DFM stuff with a OBD port. You still have collapsible lifters. Like, unless you're changing your oil every 3,000 to 5,000, you're probably going to end up having lifter problems. So I don't know. It is an awesome engine if it's reworked on the top end.
Yep. So here's one from Nate C 599. I'm a heavy equipment mechanic, and I'm always surprised when another mechanic or oiler drives a 95 to 2002 7.3 diesel, a very large percentage, including me. You know what's wild about that? That 95, if he's driving that truck around at that point, it's 30 years old and still running. That says a lot. That's incredible.
Yeah, and the OBS prices right now for those 7.3s is, I mean, you can almost buy a new half ton for what you can buy a 95, and that says a lot too.
Yep. For sure.
That brings up a good question though, because think of it like this. That's a heavy mechanic, right?
Yep.
He knows what it takes to keep that truck running too.
Yep.
How many people are going 10,000 miles on their oil changes? You know, how many people are remote starting their trucks in the morning time? 10 minutes goes by, remote start again, 10 minutes goes by, and how much fuel dilution has happened. So I think the awareness of the buyer should go up too. I mean, you can't blame the engines all the time, because there are some instances where the manufacturers need to get better. However, the salespeople at dealerships don't know these things either. I mean, you talk about fuel dilution, they don't have a clue what that is.
Exactly. And to be fair, I'm not going to rip on this oil company, because I think they make great products. AMSOIL, some people like them, some people don't. But one of their big sales pitches 15 to 25 years ago was you could run extended oil intervals on your diesel truck. I don't want to run an extended oil interval, because I'm going to have more diesel fuel dilution, which is going to mess up my bearings and my engine over time. And so if you could run that awesome oil at your standard interval, I'm okay with that. But if my opinion is, if the manufacturer says it's a 10,000 mile warranty or a 10,000 mile oil change, I wouldn't go more than like 6,000 to 7,000 miles max.
What I think would help on a lot of these engines is, we talk about fuel dilution, but we talk about the idle time. And, you know, during an idle, you're not getting good, you're not getting good combustion, right? And so you are getting more carbon, more fuel around the rings, stuff like that. And so, you know, I think some of them seem to be making a move towards this, but you know, when you have the idle timers on these things, they need to go into effect to your oil change, right?
Good
so
point.
If you're somebody that's idling a bunch in car lines, you need to be changing that oil every 3,000 miles. You know, if you're all highway, okay, go 5, you know, but the 7, they're saying it's 7, and then people are doing tons of idling, putting a bunch of hours on them. I think that's what's eating up a bunch of these lifters, the cams, all these problems they're having is because they have such a long time, but they're not taking into consideration the idle, plus the start and stop stuff that affects the engines too. But anyway,
I have a theory along what Rocky just said about the Toyota, why Toyota is experiencing so many more failures. If they built that engine under square, so it's got like a longer stroke versus the diameter, so there's a lot more torque on those pistons and rods and the crankshaft. And it's the torque. I think they start making really close to max torque at like 2,000 RPM. Most aren't like that. Like the Ford EcoBoost isn't like that. The Tundra is super low torque. I mean, low RPM torque. So you're running 0-20 oil, and I'm doing a long video on this. You're running 0W20 oil with greater tolerances, greater clearances on your bearings than the V8 had before at the 5.7, and you're running the same oil, right? So like, it just seems like you're running almost 500 foot-pounds of torque through these little V6 engines with 0W20, and maybe we queue up the next
right. Before we go to that, I'm going to leave you guys with this thought too. Do you think a longer stroke cylinder will have more oil issues versus a more square cylinder design because you got more surface area? Just a thought. And the reason I mentioned this, I heard this from GM Powertrain like 10 years ago, that the 8.1 liter Vortec engine, one of the reasons it used a lot of oil was because something to do with the diameter of the cylinders was so large that there was just no way to basically keep this thing from chugging oil. So I don't know, just a thought on that.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so let's queue up the next one. Is 20 weight oil enough for turbo and high torque engines?
I'm starting to think it isn't. When you look at Ford, a lot of people don't know this. Ford had the EcoBoost out pretty early, right? Like before everybody else. And I would say they're pretty reliable now for a twin turbo engine. They're 2.7s and they're 3.5s. They're not spinning main bearings and rod bearings. But in, I think it was 2011 to 2014, they were running 520 and they switched to 530 and they haven't gone back. Why would they do that? Like, and they sell way more trucks than someone like Toyota. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there had to be a reason. And I think 30 weight or higher for these twin turbos, or even the V8s that are pushing 500 foot-pounds of torque. I just, like, who cares about a 0.5 mile per gallon fuel hit at that point?
Well, from what I've heard, it's not even 0.5. It's like less than 0.1% or something like that. And so from my thought is, I mean, when we just did our last oil change on the 3.5 high output, I went to a 30 weight. I'm like, I don't really care to have the thinner, even if it is a 1/4 mile per gallon. I'd rather it be better on the engines, especially in the environments we're all using these trucks, towing, hot weather, cold weather, remote start. All that stuff is hard on these engines.
What's interesting to me is, like, I just had my oil changed in the Raptor R, right? And they put 550 in it. It holds almost, I think, 3 gallons. And, you know, it's full synthetic. But, you know, when you look at that, but driving it on the road trip, that thing runs 235 degrees on oil temp. That's common for all of them, right? 235 to 240 on oil temp. So if you take that 5 and you put it up at 240, it's going to be like water, right?
Yeah.
And I know it's a high RPM, you know, it's a 5.2, so it's high RPM. It's, you know, 7,000, 7,500 RPM. And I get it, but also I'm like, that's getting pretty thin at 5W at 240.
Yep. I want to add to that. When I had my Raptor R, that was the first thing I noticed when I was towing. I'm towing like a 3,000 pound enclosed trailer, and I'm seeing 240, 245 oil temps on a flat drive, no hills, no mountains, nothing. I'm like, how is this not hard on the oil, on the engine? It's probably why they're running 3 gallons of oil.
Yeah, I think it's a 225 thermostat in it, so they want it that hot. You know, so it's not that it's not out of design.
Yep.
They want it that hot, but when you pull it up in your dash, and if you have that gauge on there, it's literally almost to the yellow all the time.
Hey, I want to add,
no matter how cold or hot it is.
I wanted to add in the comments, guys, stick with us. We're going to get to your questions, and we're going to try to nail through a lot of these topics and do more of a roundtable at the end. But we really wanted to hit some of these topics for you guys. So just hang with us on that. So what do you think, JB, about the 20 weight oil, especially like from the diesel standpoint?
Yeah, if you ever have a chance, you can go buy this oil pretty cheap in some of the parts stores, but run a 0W20 down a box and then run a 5W30 down a box and see which one runs the fastest. In theory, you would think a 20 weight oil would do better because it should help with the oil pump and to lubricate better, but that's just not the case because, to you guys' points, we're seeing more failures. And I actually use my Banks iDash on a 3-liter Duramax, and I was shocked at how hot that engine gets.
Yeah.
I think I saw 230 unloaded.
Wow.
Unloaded.
Yeah. And that's a diesel, which the diesel engines run cooler. That's just wild. Yeah. I think that motor is awesome.
I want to throw this out, Barry, too, on the Hurricane. You know, the Hurricane ran pretty cool most of the time.
Yep.
But if you pull up your coolant temp and get in it, like, push it, you're going to see 230s, 240s, the engine temp. You're just like,
I would believe that.
It's instant, but it comes right back down. But the design that they've got these things to where they get that hot is just interesting to me.
I agree. I noticed this towing this summer. If I went from my medium weight, I'll call it 5,000 pound travel trailer or enclosed trailer to the 8,500 pound, I could see about a 10-degree increase in coolant temps, and it would almost be consistent on the highway at like almost a consistent on a flat at like 215, 220. But at the same time, my Raptor R, man, that thing was pretty consistent, 210, 215. And the oil temps on the Raptor R towing were like easily 40 degrees hotter.
Yeah.
Do you think it's friction?
Mix in variable oil pumps, right? So you have the Tundra making almost 480 foot-pounds of torque at 2,000 RPMs, and I'll bet they're running 25 PSI on their oil pump at that RPM. Why is that? why is that acceptable with 20 weight oil?
Yeah.
It's probably not. Like I can't imagine that protecting the bearings at that low of RPM, because it's kind of RPM based when you get these variable oil pumps. It's all PWM signal, and they open up the geometry as you go up in RPM. You guys have probably seen it in your Rams or anything that shows you your PSI and your oil pressure with these variable pumps. Mine on the Ram and the Hurricane's like 20 some PSI until you get maybe to 3,000 RPM, and then it starts going up.
So I'd be curious. We should do this at some point. Your standard output versus the high output. I'm consistent going on the highway at like 75. I'll see like 20 to 22 PSI. If I step into the gas 2,500 or make more boost, I'll watch the oil gauge get up to like 34 range. And if I really get into it, it's like 40, 45. But I did notice yesterday, cold start, 4 degrees Fahrenheit. Right off the rip, my PSI and my oil gauge instantly was like 50 to 55. I've never seen it that high before.
Yeah, mine doesn't go up that fast, I don't think. I'll put a camera on it and see.
Are you running 40 weight, 20 weight? Which one did you?
20.
20. Okay.
Which
All
would
right.
make sense.
Yep. That's what they told you, right?
I'm pushing my mineral oil through it.
All right. Next question. What powertrains do you guys trust? JB, I want to start with you.
What powertrains? 2JZ.
2JZ. All right.
No, new trucks.
Well, we
new
could do both. Let's start with new and then go used.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I mean, for new, man, have they fixed the cam lifter issues in the 7.3?
Wait, I haven't heard that in a few years, actually. I think since 23, it's been pretty solid. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not either. I mean, that's one good engine, I would say. I haven't seen the 7.3 in the shop. And I've been visiting Ford shops more. I'm seeing more half tons than anything, but I would say the 7.3 is a powertrain I would probably trust.
Mm-hmm.
Even the 6.8, probably. I don't hear any about the 6.8s. The 6.4s, I don't hear as much either with the Hemis.
Yeah.
6.6 L8T from GM. Again, never seen a failure from that one. So maybe the gas engines are making a comeback here.
You know what? That's an engine. L8T 6.6 is an engine no one talks about much, but I've never heard of one go down. Literally, that seems to be a pretty solid engine.
Yeah.
How about you, Rocky?
If we're talking about the half ton, okay, let's talk about if I'm buying a new truck and no warranty, and I'm going to have to drive it 100,000 miles, and there's no value out, there's no trading it in. Okay, I think I would agree that I really like some of the Ford powertrains and the engines, the gas engines, but probably if I'm buying that in my half ton segment, I would go the old 5.7 Hemi with the 8-speed. It's just proven and it lasts. Yeah, I might have a cracked manifold. I may have little issues here and there, but for the most part, that motor is going to make 200,000 miles without a real issue. And so right now, I think that's kind of, and it's new, so that's my new pick.
Hold up with the e-torque.
I'll take the e-torque.
You take the e-torque. All right.
Yeah, if you got to replace that, it's a big alternator. Not a huge deal, but I think if I have to buy a truck that I'm not covered under warranty and I want something that's going to last, something that's very dependable, I feel like the Hurricane is dependable, but it still is kind of new. And there are some little sensor issues. There's a couple little dash blips. I mean, there's just some things out there. But I think that 5.7 would be my pick for new. You want me to choose my old?
Yeah.
You want to go with you want to pick the old?
Yeah.
What's your or we're going to stay with the new?
Pre-2020, what's your pre-2020 pick? Or multiple picks?
I think pre-2020, I'm a GM fan. I think the 8100 and a 3/4 ton, if we're talking gas, pre-2020, I'll take a bulletproof 6.0 if you're talking about modified, but if you're not, then 7.3 on the diesel side, that's probably where I land.
All right. Well, we know where Car Guy's going. He's all about these Toyota turbos. We know that's going to be his favorite motor.
Well, so most reliable new, I would go obviously Hurricane. I bought one.
Really? Okay.
Or Hemi.
Nice.
New, but then we're talking probably second. If you're just talking turbos and what most people are buying, I still think the 2.7, the 3.5, the 5.0, and Ford are fine. I just would pick the 3.5 because it has a chain driven oil pump. I just don't want to support manufacturers putting in a belt driven oil pump.
Yep.
That's just, it's like on principle. The GM Turbo Max hasn't really had that many issues. I think GM and Ford, you're going to be replacing valve bodies. So the Hurricane has a better transmission and a better engine so far. I mean, just the data says it. Like I just look at data and I say, I have to be objective about the data. The Hurricanes aren't failing. Their transmissions aren't failing. You can like a brand, you can like a logo, but at the end of the day, you have to look at the data. And second, well, probably pre-2020, someone stole it in the comments here. The 2010 through 2015 Titans, Nissan Titans are a bargain. Like if you can't afford, because second gen Tundras would be my first pick, the 5.7 and the second gen, or the first gen if you could find one not rusted out with the 4.7. But 2010 through 2015 Nissan Titans, dude, those things were unbelievable engines and transmissions and bulletproof. If you watch even I Do Cars, their engine teardowns, Eric talks about how bulletproof they were, and they're pretty discounted compared to a Tundra. So that'd be my picks.
Perfect.
Yep.
If I was going new, well, I'm biased too. It'd probably be the Hurricane. I like it. Standard output, high output. I see benefits to both. To be fair, I like the idea of all forged internals in the high output engine. It makes me think long term there could be some benefits, but at a cost of penalty of maybe fuel economy. So you got to weigh that out. I also like the 7.3, like JB said. I think if I was keeping a truck for 300,000 miles, and that was my goal right now, I think it'd be a 7.3 truck because I want that aluminum body. It won't rust. It supposedly Ford's fixed these 10-speed trans issues. I like that it's a port fuel injected push rod, big V8. I like all of that. Simple fuel system, but it's got a transmission to help it with fuel economy. I like that. Good E-coated frame. Now, if I was going to buy pre-COVID, it's not going to be an EcoBoost because I don't want to deal with cam phasers, oil pan leak issues. Honestly, probably the engine I go with, because I've seen it firsthand with my brothers and family's business, it'd be a GM 6.0. I've seen these guys wreck these motors. I'm talking construction guys that are doing 15,000 mile oil changes for 250,000 miles, beat from every day of its life. And those motors just hold up. I would say the 5.3, because I think that's a good engine also, but then it's attached to the 4L60, and I'm not a fan of that transmission. That thing seems to be horrible. And so I like that 6-liter back in the day. And I wish that when they did the new 6.6, they would have kept port fuel injection, because I think if they would have kept port fuel injection on the GM 6.6, I think I would actually even take that over the Ford 7.3, because it's got that history of that 6-liter, small block reliability. But the fact that it's DI, man, I see problems down the road, with intake valves and stuff.
You guys put catch cans on your DI engines?
I haven't yet. I've thought about it. I'm back and forth, and I still may do it. But I just saw someone the other day do a video of a catch can on a Hurricane, and they showed like 10,000 miles of use, and it hardly had any oil in it. So then it makes me think, is it even worth it, to deal with? If you forget it and you don't fill it, that creates, or empty it, that creates problems. Or if you have an issue, it can ingest oil. So there's trade-offs if it starts having issues too.
Yeah, my concern is if you let it get full and it sweeps. You know what I mean?
Then you got a big problem. Yep. For sure.
What do you think about mid-size trucks?
Man, I'd have a hard time going away from like the Colorado Canyon with that Turbo Max. I just think that motor's pretty solid. The 8-speed behind it, proof we'll see if that's solid, but everybody I've seen so far likes it. My theory is if the 2.7 was made to hold up to the durability of a half-ton truck in the GM, and they put it in a mid-size, I feel like that thing should run forever. I don't know.
They burn oil though, don't they?
I do know people that are starting to get over that 50, 60,000 mile range, and they are using oil. So then does that bring in other problems with failing cats down the road and other issues?
Yeah. At least it's not spinning main bearings. So.
Yeah. And in full fairness, I've just been spoiled by boosted engines. You guys probably too. There's something nice about that instantaneous. You can roll into the throttle and it doesn't have to downshift. And I don't know, I think it's a more pleasant driving experience. And that's why I'd say the 2.7 over the high feature V6 it replaced, that was a pretty solid engine. But that engine actually probably gets better fuel economy. But man, that 2.7 will just stomp that thing for power.
Yeah,
does the TurboMax use is it 5W30 with the TurboMax?
I think it is. Yeah,
it's a good question. We'll have to look that up.
I think I want to say I might have saw that as 5W30 oil, but I was trying to look it up just now real quickly, but I couldn't find it here. But yeah, I mean, to your point, the TurboMax is a pretty reliable engine. I haven't heard of any issues with that one as well. So
yeah,
good point.
I'm gonna keep rolling, guys. Let's go to the next question here. We kind of touched on it a little bit. Pre-COVID vehicles top choice. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but Rocky, what were you going for?
Actually thinking about buying and restoring right now on the channel. I really, as a kid, I guess, yeah, that was that many years ago. I really like the Chevrolet Z71 extended cab 3-door, the 95 to 97 range. Anyway, I'll probably restore one of those. I probably really like it. The 350 is going to be a little low on power for me, more than likely. So maybe do a 5.3 LS swap. But,
that'd be fun.
But I think that truck was just, the seats, we talked about this before, the seats were just really comfortable in it. I remember those 95 to 97 model Tahoes, you know, they were all pretty dependable. I felt like those were a good vehicle. So that's probably my...
Bro, that was like a rock, man. That's when we all wanted those GM trucks, man. We all wanted to be cowboys and smoke Marlboros. Those were the best. Those were the best.
Bob Seger, one of those three.
Oh man, just talking about it gets me excited. JB, what about you? You kind of touched on it a little bit.
Well, I mean, that the 2JZ, you're talking about that?
Yep.
It makes you wonder, why wouldn't Toyota go back to their roots and just put that in everything? You know, that engine was known to make crazy horsepower, but maybe
then they let BMW make it.
Then
they made BMW make it for the new Supra, you know?
Yeah, well, their inline, I guess their inline 6 is pretty good too. BMW makes pretty good engines. You know?
Yep.
And again, they're making big horsepower as well. So
yeah.
But for the trucks, I'm saying the 2JZ would have been kind of cool. Could you imagine if you're going to go to a 6-cylinder? I mean, the Toyota guys would really love the idea of putting 2JZ in their truck because they sounded good too with exhaust.
Maybe Ram just opened the door for them with the American 2JZ, aka the Hurricane.
Yeah, with a 0W, was it
0W20
and 0W40?
What about you, car guy?
Obviously, I mean, second gen Tundra for sure, but like Hunt Simple said in the comments, if you can get a 2018 or older, you get the nice huge transmission cooler, and those things it was nice. It was like a remote cooler that, you know, keeps your transmission. You could be towing anything anywhere, and you'll get up to like 200, 210 at max. They removed it like all these manufacturers. They remove all the good stuff out of them around 2018. 6-liter GM too. My stepdad still has one, and those things were so simple. If you've ever seen them torn apart, single overhead cam, 2 valves, like there's just not much that can go wrong, and there's a reason why they last 300,000 to 500,000 with no problems. So yeah, 6-liter GMs if you can find one, but they usually go pretty quick.
Yep. You know, it's kind of funny. One of my favorite looking trucks still to this day, my 2 favorite HD trucks is the 0506 Super Duty and the, I'll call it 2122 Super Duty. I think those 2 years are the best looking Ford trucks. I love the Gen 1 Raptor. It still holds a special place in my heart. But man, I would love a real clean, like 05 with, say, you know, the problem is I don't want to deal with 6-liter power stroke issues. And the V10 it's average, you know, during that time period. But to add what Rocky, it's kind of funny, Rocky and I have been talking about this. We're actually going to be doing a 01 Super Duty build project. I kind of mentioned this in a video the other day. I'm trying to do something where we can take trucks that are a little bit older on a budget, and you can fix these things up and make them run. And the whole goal is focus on engines, vehicles, and powertrains that have a long life, and there's tons of aftermarket support that's affordable. I think like Rocky wanted to do with a like a 94, 97 range. Silverado, tons of aftermarket support. And then this generation is Super Duty, strong frame, okay trans, you can rebuild cheap. And maybe you guys can influence in the comment section or in our videos to get JB and Car Guy to add 2 more trucks. How fun would it be if the G4 all had 4 different old school brand trucks that we could buy cheap? Maybe a Ford, maybe a GM, maybe a Ram, and maybe a Toyota, maybe a Nissan Titan that someone likes so much. And
I could afford a Titan. I couldn't afford a 2nd gen Tundra at this point. They've gone to the moon.
yeah, that's just silliness for those things. It doesn't even make sense.
Well, hey, Jeremy, what about a T100?
Oh yeah, those were.
Oh yes, someone just said this. Look at this, Car Guy. Look at this. They're already telling you.
Right, T100.
Oh, the 4.7 too.
That thing would be insanely. The 4.7s actually have multiple million-mile accounts as well, so they're actually easier. You know, you don't have the timing chain rattle and the problems with the 4.7s. You just swap the timing belt and you're done.
Yep.
They were a super reliable engine, but
yep.
I like the Titans too. I think it's a sleeper. I think people think, for whatever reason, the CVTs like ruined Nissan's reputation. Going back to the midsize, the Nissan Frontiers. My dad has one. Dude, those things, those 4 liters, if you've ever driven a 4-liter Frontier from like 2005 to 2020, they were just unbelievable. Port injection, the power, and everybody complains that the water pumps chain driven, but it's really not that hard to replace. There's some sleepers out there that are not Toyota that are just awesome vehicles, but I think Nissan is kind of getting away from that. You know, they're not going to build trucks anymore, really, not real trucks. I mean, the last Frontier is okay. I think it's a good platform with the 3.8, but it just seems like they're going to EVs and hybrids, and you can see their direction at this point.
Yeah, they tried the Cummins. That was a one and done for them.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Yep. I do believe that it seems like, for the most part, every single brand out there has some fault. You know, you go a 3.5. What's a 3.5 EcoBoost issue? Cam phasers. We all know it, right? You go with a 6.2 now. Well, it's a connecting rod failure. That's a big one. Or maybe there's a wet oil pump gear, or, you know, the V10s. The Tritons? What did they have? Well, the early ones had popping spark plugs out of the head. Well, what does a 3-valve have? All sorts of new issues and spark plugs popping out of the head or breaking off in the head. So they all have these different issues, or manifold studs breaking. Like on the LSs, you'd hear about a manifold stud breaking, and that's a real pain because a lot of those aren't most of the LS engines like that. They're cast iron, right? Are most of those? And so you got cast iron with a stainless stud with a stainless manifold, where at least the Ford would use an aluminum block, so it's a little easier to pull that stud out once you weld one on. But all right, let's go to the next one here. What happens? This is going to be, guys, just so you know, we're not going to make this political. This is not what any of us want to do, but let's just talk about what happens after 2027 emission regulations start. So a lot of people are probably not aware of this. I'll just start with this. If there's not a change made, and I think most that watch our channels are hoping this happens, there's been a lot of focus on the CAFE standards being relaxed, and there's no longer the CAFE impact to the manufacturers, which reduced the 50 mile per gallon to the 34. It brought that back. But most people don't realize the EPA regulations have still not been changed. So this is why we're seeing in 2026, the Ford F-150 did a pull ahead, and they now have a gasoline particulate filter in the exhaust system, more than a 3-way catalyst. I never in my life thought I'd see this in a gas engine in a pickup truck in the United States. I saw this stuff in Europe and I saw it in China. Never, ever thought I'd see it coming here. If we don't see changes happen, we're going to see more gasoline particulate filters coming across by 2030. I think almost every single engine will have a gasoline particulate filter. So I would love to know, you guys in the comments, and you guys, what do you guys in the G4 think about these regulations for 2027? Are you good with them?
Everybody thinks it's a rollback. I don't think it's a rollback. If you look at how they're removing the credit swaps, so the majority of the reason why Ford and General Motors could build trucks like the trucks we like with V8s or high boosted V6s and get away with the mile per gallon rating that they have. The reason they could do that was because they would buy credits from Tesla, like 15 to 20% of their credits. They were spending billions of dollars buying credits from Tesla. So they're going to cut that off so they can't buy credits from maybe Tesla or Rivian or whoever. So now the manufacturers, even though they rolled the mile per gallon rating back to 34 miles per gallon for 2027, now they have to meet that with their own fleet. They can't just buy credits. So it might not matter with like Trump or if JD gets in, but it'll matter a lot if the pendulum swings back to the blue and they start finding them again. We're going to see, I think, maybe it's 5 years down the road, we're going to see them behave completely differently. You know, they're not going to build, they won't be able to build the trucks they build today getting 18 miles per gallon. There's just no way. That's the way I see it. I could be wrong. But
so are you thinking that it would be like, there'd be like forced hybrids, or are you thinking something completely different, like back to EVs?
Hybrids, Ram Charger style, right?
Like range extenders. Okay.
Yeah. Stuff that
yeah
is really complex, probably a lot less reliable, probably a lot more short-term ownership driven, lease driven. That's what they want to do. I mean, GM doesn't care, you know. I don't think they really care about what we want as truck enthusiasts or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I don't want a hybrid truck. If I want to keep something 10 years or 15 years, I don't really want to deal with an inverter, or I don't want the electronics I have in it, but you know, that's what we have.
I would be open to a hybrid, but it doesn't work for my lifestyle. I do a lot of highway driving, and I'm yet to see a hybrid get better fuel economy than just a standard ICE engine. If you live in the city, it's where you see the benefit, or maybe some rural driving. But if you tow or you drive on the highway, I see zero fuel economy, any impact of improvement. All I see is complexity.
Yeah, there's a lot of torque.
I'll answer on your particulate filter. I think, you know, if you look at the diesels, and this is just, I mean, we don't know what they're going to do, the EPA, or, you know, where things will land. I think the manufacturers aren't going to shift gears. They're going to continue, because things can change 4 years later. They're going to have to continue to build the way they are, and kind of, I think that CAFE standard dropping the MPG down average will help. But, you know, I think these particulate filters, what we're seeing now is we're seeing a lot of boosted V6s, and that's going to have to be boosted engines, because the back pressure on anything naturally aspirated from these catalysts is going to create issues for, you know, your V8s, any of your naturally aspirated, your 5.2s, 5.3s, stuff like that. And I think that, you know, if you go and you look at it, and I wonder, I don't know where they come up numbers wise, but, you know, it's like the diesels. You can get twice the miles per gallon out of a diesel and burn half as much fuel. Let's say a truck for 100,000 miles, right? You're going to burn half as much fuel in that 100,000 miles on a deleted diesel. You're going to burn twice the fuel with a normal standard today's emissions diesel, right? Oh. And so my concern is I know you're burning twice the fuel, so you're also creating more byproduct to me. So I don't know, you know, at some point. But I know the boosted engines will probably be fine, and I think that's why they're gearing up. Everything's going V6 boosted, because they can put the particulate filters behind them, and it won't affect the back pressure, won't hurt them that much. But I think that catalyst deal will kill the V8s and anything that's naturally aspirated as far as any efficiencies. I don't even know that they'd be able to take like a 5.2 or 5.3 with a catalyst with the back pressure of a particulate filter and get any kind of efficiency out of it. I think it would really kill the V8 natural aspirated market if they do that.
You bring up a good point, and I see this Daniel Rock's question. I thought GPF was only for boosted engines. So the way this is rolling out is there's a phase in. I think it starts January 1st to 27, and each year the PM percentage of the fleet changes. But as each year it increases, by 2029 or 2030, it's almost going to get, and I could be butchering this, so, you know, don't hold me to it, where almost every engine will require it, but DI engines require it more than port fuel, because DI engines produce more particulate. So that's why those engines get hit. And generally speaking, other than the L8T, what other DI natural aspirated engines do we have in the half-ton and three-quarter-ton truck segment? Because the 6.4 is not, the 7.3 is not. All the diesels are DI. Is there another natural aspirated? Is the Pentastar, or is that port fuel injection?
That's port fuel injection too.
Okay. So then It's literally just the L8T66 is the only. Oh, well, actually the Coyote is DI and PFI.
Yeah.
So maybe that one could get hit by it.
Mm.
What do you think, JB?
I'm still stuck on GPF. Like, what does that mean? Someone say out loud what that means.
Gasoline particulate filter.
Okay, what's the PF?
Particulate filter. Yeah.
I didn't know gasoline engines put out particulate matter.
Yeah.
Do they? I mean, I'm asking the question now because
they according to the PM, the particulate matter, they do. It's less than a diesel because diesels, obviously, you get that big black puff. But I don't know if you guys notice it. And if you guys are watching the channel now, you'll probably notice a little bit. You're going down the highway, find some modern EcoBoost, Escape, whatever. If you see someone pass right on the highway, I didn't notice it because I've been in the exhaust world for 20 plus years. Right when you see it on the highway, you see this instant little acceleration, and you're going to see the smallest little black puff of smoke come out of the exhaust pipe. It's nothing. It's nothing like a diesel. It's hardly worth chasing. But there is a super small amount. But it's still not. I mean, once again, you're chasing diminishing returns. I think it's silly personally.
Right. So the other question is, are they going to get rid of catalytic converters then?
Well, they could combine it. So one of the things that the technology, I can speak to this now, one of the things that there was talk about is when you had a gasoline engine, you'd have a three-way catalyst, which is you're chasing three different hydrocarbons. And then they'd have a secondary, like an underbody gasoline particulate filter. One of the theories was you could combine the two into one, and it's called a coated gasoline particulate filter. Well, they'll actually put the catalyst coatings on the gasoline particulate filter, but it's not that simple in all cases. Audi's been doing it in some of their vehicles, but it's really expensive. And the other thing a lot of people don't realize about gasoline particulate filters, one of the downsides, it creates a lot of heat in the engine because you're forcing back pressure back into the engine. So I think we'll start seeing more valve train issues. But here's the other downside people don't realize. When you design an exhaust system in a car, you have back pressure. You have back pressure on the hot end, which is your catalytic side, and then the muffler side. Add all that back pressure together, and we'll call it 300 kPa of back pressure. One way manufacturers have been looking to reduce the back pressure on the system is basically make it where there's no muffler on the truck. So you could reduce that entire muffler side. So now think about how crappy some of these new GPF vehicles could sound because you might lose a muffler. So all I'm thinking is this is just, I don't see anything good coming for this. I'm not trying to be negative. I just have been so disappointed on this whole GPF thing. It just seems like costly. I can't just imagine how many people are going to start breaking down with GPF issues like we saw. Rocky, you remember, and JB, you probably remember. How many DPF issues do you guys remember between 2010 and 2012? You know, flames coming out of the back of Super Duty trucks and all these injectors failing and stuff. Like, that was a disaster.
Yeah. When they first came out with them, it was a lot of problems. They've gotten a lot better on the efficiency on them. But like I said, you've got to have forced air induction to even make them work. I think it's a way for them to kind of kill the V8s.
Yep.
On the other side, I think it's a way to get in there and say, hey, we're going to kill the V8s by putting particulate filters on, because if they have to be at an average of 36, whatever the CAFE standard is, and then they go putting this back pressure on the V8s, I think it's just gonna, like, they're not even going to be able to build them because they're going to be sub 10 probably with the back pressure. Maybe I'm wrong, but you know, I just see it that way.
They want everything EV or hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, guys, so we kind of went through our 5 major talking points. I want to start now, just kind of open this up into like more of a roundtable, and we'll start focusing on some of your guys' comments and kind of going through this. There's been a lot of changes coming. One of the things I wanted to share with you guys before we go into that stage is something I've been playing around with, actually. So the big thing for a lot of us on this on the G4 is we're just trying to help you guys and trying to look at what is the data look like, because really, how do you maximize your vehicle purchase? And I thought some of this data was interesting. So if we look at what is the history of vehicle sales per year, In the US market, you typically see about the max the US market can produce is somewhere between 17 and 17.7 million. And these are vehicles sold in the United States. We look from 2008, you kind of see, you know, things were humming along, and then in the Great Recession, it dropped quite a bit. And then it stopped climbing every year, climbing all the way into 2015 to 2019. We're 17 million, 17 million, 17 million, just jamming. Huge maxed out capacity demand. 2020, COVID, slow down. You see a big drop, 20%, and then it clawed back up. 2021 increased. 2022 was a lighter year, but then look at 23, 15.1, 24, 16 million. And some projections, this projection on Google is saying 16.1 to 16.2, but I've also heard it's more like 15.7. Why is this important? Because are prices going up or prices going down for vehicles? The average new car price remains around $50,000. This is a good article on NerdWallet. You guys can check this out. But what is happening with the index? Are we seeing prices going up, stabilizing, or going down? Here's what the used car price market looks like. I just incorporated this data from pre-COVID, exactly 6 years ago to today. And this is an index Car Gurus has. I recommend you guys looking at this. It's fun. You guys are watching. In 2019, the used car price index was around 21,000. What do we see happen here? This is when COVID happened, and COVID jumped vehicle prices, used vehicle prices, almost 50%, 22,000 up to 31, almost 32,000. And then now look what's happened in the last 5 years. It's dropped some, but it's not dropped a drastic amount. It's almost stabilized here at this 28 mark. But what's interesting is I'd love to show you guys, let's fast forward this thing to today in 2025. And there's some interesting things happen in 2025 that I'm wondering are we on the verge of seeing another maybe price reduction here? Let me show you here. Let's just go July 1st to today. Look at this. We're seeing a bit of a dip, and it's actually happening, especially if we go from like November 25th to now, it's kind of diving quickly.
It's not much though. If you look at
still not much in the grand scheme. Exactly.
If you zoom out like you had it on COVID, I think that's a better representation. Unfortunately, I just don't think, unless the stock market, this AI bubble kind of bursts and everything kind of corrects like it did in 2008, I don't see car prices getting to be much better than they are today, which is, it's awful because everything stayed up, right? Housing, you look at housing, they have all this, it's just this crazy stalemate. Cars, now we've talked about this, newer trucks in a lot of cases seem to be a better deal than the used stuff, because you see it in this graph, the used vehicles are just holding value, and especially because people they don't want the tech, they don't want the turbos, so they're just gobbling up everything from Honda, Toyota, Nissan, anything that's a V6, naturally aspirated V8s. They're just gobbling them up, and it's just going to hold that value until they're all, until people kind of break free of that, and they maybe start to find what they feel like might be more reliable vehicles than new vehicles. I think new vehicles are going to be more of a bargain than used for the next year, unless the market crashes.
Totally agree. And so when you guys see this right here, when you see plus 4%, what that means is actually the market's gone up. Pricing is going up. Red is up. But look what's happened in the last 90 days. Used trucks, it's saying trucks have went down 2.5% in the last 90 days. But now here's where I think it's more interesting. We start looking at brands. Look at what brands have went up the most. Look at Cadillac up 8%, Aston Martin 12%, BMW, Bentley's down. But now let's look at Dodge. Dodge is down 6%. Ford is down 4.5%. GMC is down 5%. Honda's down 4%. But Hummer's down 16%. So you can see this is falling off. And look at this, guys. If this is not an indicator of the EV incentives being dropped, 13.76% in the last 90 days. This is 100% driven by the $7,500 tax credit being removed. What about, here's the big one. What about Toyota? This is let's see, Toyota. Toyota is down 3%. It's went up 3% year over year, but in the last 90 days, Toyota's down almost 5%. So that's interesting.
In the used market.
In the used market. Now, Tesla as a year is down 10.5%. But look, that Tesla's not getting smoked like some of these other EV car companies in the last 90 days. They're showing pretty solid for used, which is interesting.
Well, someone put that in the comments. You know, when you look at all the problems that people are having with combustion engines nowadays with new cars, and they look at an EV like Tesla,
Looks a lot better.
Proven track record, and they're like, I'll just buy that to commute with, or to like run to the grocery store with, or whatever. They don't have to change oil. They don't have to worry about the motors dying. It's like,
Yep.
And it's fun. If you've ever driven one, they whip. Corvette.
Here's another data set that I found interesting. So right now, nationwide, according to ramtrucks.com, there's 51,200 Ram 1500s available on dealer lots right now. This is nationwide. If we break this down a little bit, though, let's look by powertrain. If we look by powertrain, there are 779 V6 Pentastar Ram 1500s available. What about the Hemi? It just came out 3 months ago. 19,000 of the 51,000. There are 19,000 Ram 1500 Hemi trucks on dealer lots right now, and it just came out. I think that's a big number considering it just started. When we look at the Hurricane's at 25,000. So obviously there's more Hurricanes, but they've been making it for 2 years. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really surprised there's this many Hemis available.
Well, one thing I'll say about that is I'm kind of concerned with, I was looking at ordering a TRX with them spending the money and doing the Hemi launch like they did, and it kind of fell. I'm kind of concerned to see, everything else has been dragging out.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if they're like, wait a minute, we may I'm thinking they may be looking more at the Hurricane and thinking less of Hemi.
Maybe these delays, they've been wanting to see how well adapted the 5.7 was brought into the market. Do people want it? And if these things aren't selling, maybe TRX won't even happen at this point.
Yeah.
And then here's the high output Hurricane, 5,300.
And I think the reason why the Hemis are sitting right now is the 10-year, 100,000 mile. I think when they go drive the Hurricane, they go drive the Hemi, it's obvious the Hurricane's faster and more torque and everything. And then they're like, well, I'll just get, at least for the 2026 model, they might choose that Hurricane over it.
And it's cheaper.
Yeah.
It's cheaper. You got a good warranty, more power, better fuel economy. If the 5.7 was the same price, or ideally, it logically should be lower price because it's simpler. There's less cost to make it. If it was $1,000 less than a Hurricane, man, I think they'd sell a lot more of them.
Now, I did want to say this to go with your MSRP thing, Barry, before is, we're out on these lots and we're looking at these vehicles. And what's interesting to me is I've seen the MSRP drop on two vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Ford Bronco, like Ford dropped those MSRPs almost 10 grand.
Yeah.
And if the window sticker was out on them, they actually had an edited window sticker to be re-put on that vehicle. Okay.
Yep.
And so they're pushing people to go to the Bronco, and then Jeep did the same thing on their 392s and looked like they were doing it for the Wrangler Rubicons too. They've dropped the MSRP significantly on those two because they're competitors, right?
That's
the Bronco and the Jeep. But as the market, we talk about everything going up. It was interesting to see both of those vehicles come down significantly. And I'm seeing a lot more of them on the roads and a lot less of them in the dealership lots.
I agree.
Like the Jeep inventory seems like it's thinning out. I'm seeing more on the roads, and it seems like the Broncos are getting more and more. Not your Bronco Raptors, and even though they dropped the price on those too, but like your Badlands and your standard Broncos, like they're shipping those things, and they're a lot more reasonable for people to purchase right now.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny you mention that because just today I was doing a video, and man, this dealership, they had like 3 Broncos, and I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. They used to have like 20. And so they're definitely moving. Here's something I wanted to also add. If you guys don't go to Ram Trucks and want to look, Car Gurus, from what I've seen, their data is pretty accurate for inventory. They're saying there's 50,000 Ram 1500s out there, and Ram's website was 50,900 or something. So it's really close. But when I start looking at this, guys, I'm seeing, $7 grand. This one's a huge discount. This one's $19,000 off on a 25 Ram 1500. That's pretty big.
Probably a demo. Most of those are like 2,000 miles on them or something.
Yep. It's a good point. But the point I want to show you guys, got 50,000 Ram 1500s out there available nationwide. What's Ford got? 65,000 F-150s. That's a lot more. And what does Chevrolet have? 57,000. So GM, this is actually interesting because this number was a little lower. This number's creeped up a little bit. And Ram, just recently, this number was at like 60,000. So Ram has moved some inventory, and I'm wondering if it was at the sacrifice of General Motors.
Yeah. But the Rams right now, I mean, you go look at a 1500 Laramie right now, you can probably get 14 off, 16 off, something like that.
Dude,
There's
here we go.
significant discounts.
18 grand. Here's some
the
random
H-
dealer in North Carolina.
Yeah, the
18 grand
HDs
off.
are about as good right now. I mean, they're not that much off, but you know, anywhere from 8 to 12 right now because they're trying to move the 25 inventory.
Yep.
Yeah, the 2026 warranties sabotaged all their 2025 pricing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
For
they
sure.
did.
I keep thinking, to be fair, I keep thinking that we're probably going to see Ram or Stellantis start offering 100,000 mile warranty on these leftover 25s just to kind of move them. I mean, it's a big deal, but yeah.
Now, what could shift that is you've got the tariffs, right? Now they're trying to get HD production back up in Michigan,
Yep.
right? But all these dealers that are sitting on large inventories of HDs, if the tariffs really affect them, right? Now that they're going to start building them in Michigan, but they're still building in Mexico, then having these large inventories on some of these lots is going to benefit these dealers, going to help them out to have some units to sell.
Yep. And honestly, I know people are looking for deals, and there's probably a lot of people on this that don't want to hear this, but you know where I think the deal is going to be? F-150 Lightnings, prices dropping.
Oh,
I think we're going to see these things 50% off. There's 5,000 of them out there right now, brand new. So
Hummer EV's done the same thing. It's dropped significantly.
Yeah.
Also.
I mean, think about it. It'd be a really cool vehicle if you needed a beater and you could get one for 20 grand and you don't need range and you don't tow. Man, if you could get one for 20 grand, I'd be open to it. Treat it like a minivan, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see that they're thinking of trying to copy the Ram Charger instead?
Oh, for sure they are. Did you see their announcement on their range? Their range, they said 700 mile range. Isn't that convenient that the Ram Charger is 670? Of course, they got to do the one-upsmanship. So, and they'll probably rush it to market with all kinds of problems because they got to catch up now. I'm just teasing. You guys know I'm a Ford guy, but I'm going to give Ford a hard time about this. If they're going to come up with a hybrid, do it right. Don't make the customers the guinea pigs. Looks like you got some people wanting to move to Florida and Colorado to hang out. And what else we got going here? I'm seeing some comments here.
Don't move to Colorado. They just charged me $1,300 for my Ram registration. That's on top of state sales tax. So I paid, I don't know, $3 or $4 grand sales tax, right? And then you go to get plates, and just the metal, just the plates, the ownership taxes, almost $1,400.
Wow, dude, that's bad. I thought Michigan was bad. Ours is like tags are like $500 a year or something like that, and it used to be like $250. They got to pay for all the weed there for you guys.
Yeah, they said all the pot was going to pay for everything, and it didn't.
Yeah, liars.
Yeah.
I think
Maybe,
ours are like
maybe
86.
meth will be better.
We're like $86
$86
for
Red
tags.
State, hey, high five, Red State, high five.
Yeah,
That's it.
man, that's amazing. Yep.
At Marty, Vision says Rams are junk, and he thinks I made a big mistake. Man, he would rather I pay the government, I guess. He doesn't understand how businesses work. It's okay, though.
No, Car Guy is not from Michigan. Car Guy is
They're all
from,
confused.
is it Colorado? Is that right?
Colorado, buddy.
Yep. I'm from Michigan. JB's from all over. Rocky, Mr. Texas Toy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you guys got? Some other questions? You know, I've been talking about this recently. The highlights the last year and a half, all we've been told is we're going to see 30-35% off MSRP. I still haven't seen it. Maybe we'll see it. And I think the caveat, guys, it's going to be EVs, man. I think there's going to be a window where potentially you're going to see 30 to 50% off on these Lightnings, because if there's any left, I mean, think about it. If you were on the fence of buying a Lightning, are you going to buy one now when you know Ford is bailing on the whole program? No way. And then think about all the leased Lightnings and the leased Hummers that are going to come
They're
out here
coming
in a
back.
year or two. Oh
Like the
my
one we
gosh.
have, it's going
Dude,
back.
Dude, think about that. The lease
I know.
on those things is going to tank on them, you know?
Hey, Barry, I want to bring this up because we need to talk about it too. The 8.3 diesels. I know y'all seen it. Y'all seen the rumors.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on these?
There's a new diesel. There's a few new diesels coming out. The 8.3 was originally part of a theory around the new emission standards. The sad part is the emission standards still haven't changed. There's a lot of confusion, and people think you can do certain things, and the federal laws have been rolled back. They still haven't. So there's a chance we might get some awesome diesels around the corner. But as it stands in the pipeline, I don't know. I mean, the Ford's got a new one coming out. Ram's already got one, but there's another one coming behind it. And then GM's got one coming out. Where you're going to see GM bringing a whole new fleet of powertrains in the next 12 to 18 months.
But can you imagine if we're talking 14 to 1,500 foot-pounds of torque?
It'll have to be full-time all-wheel drive.
How well these trucks run now with what we have, and if they go to this 8.3, and then what's that going to do to the values and people's buying?
No doubt.
Like, are you going to go buy it? Some people are going to buy the 6.7s because they're tested and they're good and they know, you know, but then there's people that are like, I'm going to wait on the 8.3. So,
you know what, Rocky? Honestly, I don't want more power, man. You know what I want? I want a truck that I'm 100% confident I could get 500,000 miles out of a powertrain. If you could give me a Cummins truck with an 8-speed trans that is 350 horse, reliable, I would take that over the 450 horse version if you knew it's a 500,000 mile engine.
Reliability is not what sells vehicles anymore. And I know people in the chat will get pissed, but I love reliability. That's what my entire ethos of the channel is. But it is obvious by sales numbers of these manufacturers that people do not care about reliability. And a lot of the sales you see are leases or short sales, like 2 to 3 year sales. People are not planning to keep these trucks past 100,000. They don't care.
Right.
They just want the power and the tech, and they're just like, whatever, I'll just cycle it.
Yep.
Can only do that for so long though.
Hey, this Wally Hunter, you'd appreciate this. I just did a video recently. My truck was delivered by Mark Dodge, and the delivery guy had a F2019 F350 with a 6.2. He was delivering. Okay, this is really funny. He had a crew cab short bed with a gooseneck, and he had a F-150 crew cab and an RHO on this gooseneck. And all I keep thinking of, and Rocky, you probably know this better than me, what's the weight of that trailer empty? One of those like 2-car haulers. What are they, 8,000 pounds probably? They got to be, they're heavy. That's an all steel, what, 40 foot long?
Yeah, I would think so. I would think he's going to be over. He's going to be over definitely on payload. And
yeah, so, well, even payload, I'm like, if that trailer's 8,000 pounds and he's got 18,000 pounds up top, 15,000 pounds, that's 25,000 pounds behind a 6.2. Guy said he had 290,000 miles in this truck, original motor, original trans on a 6.2. And I'm like, that's a testament right there. That's pretty solid.
Yeah. And I think, another thing too on longevity, we talked about all the oil issues, but I think that nobody, especially up there where it's really cold where y'all are, but even when it's cold down here, I keep my vehicle in a garage, right? And so I can tell you from cold startups, I'm a diesel mechanic. I've done this stuff for a long time. Cold startups are hard on engines, right? Like you said, when your oil pressure's maxed out and your relief valve's open, the oil pump's doing, it's really hard on engines. And I think, you look at why some people have problems, why some people don't have problems. I've cycled through a lot of trucks. They stay pretty much in a climate control in my garage. They get good startups. And if my vehicles are outside, a lot of times I literally will just start them up, let them run for, let the temperature come up before I gas it, or I'm just idling through the neighborhood. I've got a nice little neighborhood ride, for about half a mile, and it's letting that engine warm up before I go get out on the highway or do a hard acceleration on it, and so there's a lot of those things. We talk about oil, we talk about letting the engine warm up just a little bit, and I'm not talking just sitting and idling, but just not firing it up, pulling out on the highway and hammering down on it, because that's going to shorten the life of those engines. And I think that users have some play in why some of these engines fail too.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. My truck's in a heated garage, even if it's 30 to 30 degrees or
Mhm.
0 out. My garage is like 45, 50. The only time it sees like cold weather is like on a hunting trip or a snowmobile trip, and it's, you know, -10, -20. And then you're like, dang, this thing's hurting right now. But yeah, some people's trucks are outside or vehicles are outside the entire time.
I think it has a huge part to do with longevity of how
Yeah.
these vehicles last, and people that have them out in the elements and people that have them in a garage, and there's just a lot of different variables.
You know what's interesting about that? My dad had an old Xterra 4-liter, and he sold it to my sister as like a car for her son at like 200 and some thousand miles on it. And he had that thing at 10,000 feet up in Fairplay, Colorado for
Mhm.
20 or probably 15 years or something like that. No garage. That thing was like in negative temperatures half the year, right? It's just
Wow.
beat. Never had a problem with it. It's just, but it's an
Incredible.
old port injection
Yep.
5W30, you know?
You sure it didn't have 5W20?
I'm positive. Yeah.
Um,
Nissan didn't do that.
So this question, I wanted to come back on this one. Competition for the Ram Rev, this new Ford Lightning. Yes, 100% agree with you. And then that question is, why do you guys think companies like Ford and General Motors didn't go plug-in hybrid or range extender first and they went all in? I'm going to give you my opinion first. It's because everybody wanted to be Tesla because they saw the shareholder price that Tesla got. They get the returns. If you can be Tesla, if you're an investor, you give Tesla money, not Ford and GM, because Tesla made you a lot of money because they're all in on the EV movement. That's my theory, because traditional car manufacturers are not an investment people want to put their money into. And a hybrid is like half there. So that was my theory on it.
Taxpayer funded too.
Yep. Good point.
Not anymore, but it was.
Yep. Yeah, now they got to stand on their own feet.
Yeah, when they're told they got to stand on their own feet, it takes 6 months, and then they're like, "Yeah, we're just getting rid of this."
Yeah, or 2
Uh-huh.
months.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just September 30th. These credits ended. They made it 2 months.
Yeah.
I personally, for me and how I use my truck, I think this Ram Rev could be awesome. I mean, I'm thinking of the torque of an electric engine towing a trailer going down the road. The engine braking and torque on this thing could be phenomenal. Not having to deal with EV range anxiety. I think for people that tow, I mean, every locomotive isn't a locomotive. Basically, that the diesel engine is just a generator for electric motors.
Mhm.
So I don't see why a pickup truck couldn't be great at that. Let's see what other comments.
Rocky has one, Raptor or RHO.
Oh man, you got to be honest here, Rocky.
Man, so I just did a video yesterday, and I literally explained this. And I love both of them. They're both two different animals. Okay, the RHO is still the best bang for your buck. You want hands-free driving, everything. But what really, like Barry said in the beginning of this video, is the RHO and that high output Hurricane, having that boost and having that horsepower and torque at 2000 RPM, it makes that truck like a diesel. It just has that low end power. Like if you're pulling a trailer, if you're doing stuff on the daily, you get the fuel efficiency, man, you just get everything with that truck. And it's really, the RHO is still probably I said it in my video, my favorite truck for the past decade that I have owned, just
Wow.
because of the linear power, the capability, the ride, everything it does that I need to do. And doing cross-country trips with the family is just super comfortable, and get 17, 18 miles to the gallon out of a truck with 35s on it lifted from the factory. I mean, it's just an unreal deal, right? Now, the R, I'm going to say this, the R is a really awesome truck too. It is fun to drive. It drinks a lot of fuel. It does not have, now it's supercharged. So when you get in it, yeah, it's crazy, right? It will literally run. But if you're looking for that low end power of pulling a trailer or something like that, that engine makes all its horsepower at the top end. Okay. So it does not provide the same experience as towing my boat as the RHO, where the RHO is not really struggling. And it's not that it won't do it. It will do it, but it's like any other gas engine, right? It's getting up there high in the revs. You're at the top end, getting that power out of it, And so to me, in a comparison, if you're looking for an everyday truck, good ride, all those things, better price point, right? I mean, you can almost buy two RHOs for what you're going to pay for a Raptor R. Okay. And so I really think the value and the everyday user and the everyday person. And I think, and Barry, me, there's other guys on YouTube that we all bought these RHOs, and I think we were all blown away with the truck. I mean, that's just my opinion. Barry, you can comment on that too. I mean, you're on your second one.
Yeah, and I had the
zero.
Raptor R. And I honestly, what I miss about the Raptor R, the small bump compliance on the road. I think the ride quality, when you hit a small bump, you don't feel a thing, the chatter. But the caveat to it, like we were talking about, is the Raptors, I feel like when you go down the road and you get that expansion joint, you get that kick out in the rear end. The Ram, the RHO doesn't seem to do that. But it's also a little stiffer ride. I feel like below 2,700 RPM, which is the majority of the towing I'm doing, I feel like the RHO feels a little bit stronger. Am I crazy than the Raptor R towing in like that RPM? Which engine do you think towing down the road feels stronger other than
For
just
towing? The
wider?
RHO feels stronger all day. There's not even a question. But the RHO drives like a sports car.
Yeah.
It feels like a sports car. If I'm going over, okay, the Raptor R is better in bump compliance. Yes, the suspension is way more capable. It literally can soak that small stuff up. But in comparison to the RHO, if you want to talk about a truck that you're going to do 90 miles an hour in, that RHO, the handling, the driving, the security, and it feeling like it's planted, you know, where the Raptor is a little more bouncy, not quite as, you know what I mean? Two different animals, two different trucks. Love them both. But my everyday buyer recommendation is always going to be the RHO.
Yep. This everybody's channels. We'll put the information in the comments. I'll make sure that Rocky, JB, mine, and Car Guys, all of our information, YouTube channels. So if you guys want to watch, I definitely recommend. We all bring different strengths, and we all kind of come in. And the whole goal here is just to help you guys out. So see another comment here talking about $100 an hour compared to $170 to an electric truck. To drive an electric truck. I'm not sure I understand talking about $100.
I think they had an ongoing conversation.
That's okay. I missed that. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. The only thing I don't like about the RHO is full-time four-wheel drive. Man, dude, makes two of us. That bums me out too. But I will tell you, in my environment in Michigan, I use four-wheel drive a lot. We're in the snow. There's ice. We got a foot of snow here right now. And it's nice that when I'm towing, I don't have to think. You guys, JB, you've probably done it. I don't know, Jeremy or Car Guy, you've probably done this too. Is if you guys towed in a trailer in the wintertime in the snow, it's an unfun experience.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
No. So if you snowmobile or get up north, you got no choice. You could drive 500 miles one way towing.
Two-wheel drive is definitely way more fun to drive with the horsepower for sure. I mean, y'all 100%. Know it is. I really hope that Ram, if they come out with a new TRX, they give you a two-wheel drive option. You know, it's just, it's a whole different. The all-wheel drive is nice. The one thing I will say though about the Raptor that I do like is if I put it in 4 auto, it stays in 4 auto. So a key cycle, turning it off, turning it on. So it's not something that you have to remember to go back and do. It literally stays in 4 auto until I take it out of 4 auto. So that's nice. So if you want that all time all-wheel drive, it's there, and you have to manually turn it off and go back into 2-wheel drive.
Makes sense. So what do you guys think? Let's end with this. What do you guys think for 2026? What do you think it looks like for pricing? New and used. If you guys had to make a guess, what do you think that looks like?
Who wants to go first?
JB, he's sitting back there quiet, thinking, pondering.
Are you recording this?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the prices have gone down, right? The prices have gone down. They just haven't gone down the way that we were hoping, because what have the manufacturers done? For Ford is very slick. They've actually lowered their prices by about $3,000, but all they did was just take away 4-wheel drive and made 2-wheel drive an option again.
Yeah, they dropped the price $3 grand, but removed 10 grand in content.
Yeah, just like with the exactly, just like with the Ford Lariat trims, like they've basically made it to where their entry level doesn't have certain options on it. So then you have to
no
upgrade
leather.
Exactly, Active X, and so is prices going to go down next year? Absolutely not. I mean, if people keep buying these trucks, and people will continue to buy them. They're going to go up. And then we know, picking on Ford some more, sorry guys, Ford is probably going to be refreshing their Super Duty lineup next year and potentially new engines. So if that's the case, people are definitely going to be jumping on board because Ford guys are very loyal. So they're going to 100% go up next year for Ford. Ram, I could see Ram staying about the same. GM's going to be getting a lot of updates with their half ton. So they're going to go up in price a little bit.
Yep.
And they're getting new powertrains. So now people are afraid of the 6.2s and the potentially the 5.3s because it's a V8. So they're probably going to jump ship and go to something newer.
Rocky?
I'm going to pass on this one.
All right. He's pleading the fifth.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the bottom end of what they're going to show on MSRPs with tariffs and everything else. I just don't see prices dropping much more, because if you can already get, let's say you get 15 to 20% off of a Ram right now or whatever, I just don't see it going more than that. I don't think they have that much room in them with the unions and everything else. You look at wages going up, the unions are pretty strong. Tariffs, things are moving back, things are costing more to import. Why would prices go much lower?
Yeah.
The used prices have been hovering for a year or more. I think, like I said before, unless the stock market just dumps and we see this AI, if we see the stock market just dump, I think it'll affect it and we'll see lower prices. But that's like saying, well, great, everybody's going to lose their jobs and cool, no one's going to buy a truck anyway. So
right. My thought on this is I think the brand that I'm most worried about is Ford for 26. I think Ram is already in a good position of value right now. Toyota's already got their following. GM's got a whole new platform coming of powertrains and a refresh. That's going to help them. Ford's got nothing coming for 26. Super Duty is here.
They got GPFs.
What's that?
They have GPFs.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So just sticking the fork in there, Jeremy. The Ford guys right now are like, and they got the whole negative persona of GPF. So I think 26 is going to be a tough year on Ford. I mean, they've got the new Expedition out. That's full-size SUV. How many people buy them? They got the new Navigator, same thing. Super Duty, F-Series. I don't know. I'm worried about Ford, and I haven't thought this before. I've always thought they've been in a great position. That's the brand I'm most worried about. Ram, I think Ram is leading the American domestics for value right now, and then GM is going to be right behind them.
I'll defend Ford a little bit, and y'all know I'm a Ford fan guy, not just because I'm driving one right now. Okay, I'm a Ram guy also, but the Super Duty towing and dependability, and I feel like the Ford dependability, some of these boosted engines, they've had the EcoBoost longer than anybody else has had the twin turbo. Maybe Toyota did, I don't know, but between the three, right? I think they're doing a good job on dependability and reliability a little bit more than everybody else. Yeah, I think everybody else is having to shift a little bit. Ram came out with the 8-speed. You got GM coming out with new engines, and it's some things because they needed to. Just my opinion.
Yeah. Hey, while we're talking, so gentlemen, I'm going to buy a new 26 HD truck, non-diesel. Rocky, what truck do you go with? What do you think is most reliable? Kind of talked about that earlier, but I'm curious, what would you go with?
Right now, if I'm buying a truck, depending if you wanted the gas or diesel, it would depend on how much you're towing. Again, if you're going to spend the money on the diesel, I'm either Ram or Ford. If you're going to go tow something big, you're going to need that 7.3. If not, that 6.8 is a pretty good option for the gas. But the Power Stroke is still a pretty strong option for me. It's pretty dependable, and I think everybody's had pretty good luck with it. So I would probably stick that route.
JB.
Well, I've owned just one of them, but depends on how high are you above sea level.
Good question. Yeah, great question.
Because this is to follow what Rocky said. I love gas engines. I think that they have their place, but if you're towing, it hurts. That's all I'm gonna say. That loud screaming engine just gets annoying.
Yep.
And here, the L8T, I like the L8T, but out here in Utah, it just doesn't do good. It feels like it struggles. I've towed with the 6.4 Hemi, and shockingly, it did better than I thought it would. And then the 7.3, you can get 2 different gearing options, just like the 6.4. So I would probably go with the 7.3 again. I'm just biased because I think Ford does it the best. They have the port injections we talked about. You get 430 gears, which works good out here at 5,000 feet. And yeah, I just think that Ford has done a good job with how they market their trucks. They have the most horsepower, most torque, and it's just the best option if you're planning to tow.
Yeah, he said he's at 2,600 to 7,500 feet in Boise.
It's not terrible. Yeah,
Not
I mean,
terrible.
yeah. You know, it's so funny you mentioned that, JB. I got to get you to Michigan, man, because you've pulled with 7.3s out there. If you pulled here at sea level, man, it's a whole different animal. You would probably be like, I'd never own a diesel living at sea level. You know, it can do it so much easier.
Well, in Maryland, I was at sea level. I just don't remember now. I don't remember if it was much of a difference, but I climbed grades in Maryland too, where I was.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
That's back when you had your mega cab, right?
Yeah, the white one.
The white one.
yeah.
That was a good
Everybody remembers
truck.
those videos.
Yep.
Yeah.
Possibly Expedition trimmer. Expedition trimmer, I think it does have the high output engine of the 3.5. For the most part, it's pretty solid now. I mean, I hope they've fixed the cam phaser issue after the 17th revision, so it should be solid now. Hence the sarcasm. And I think the 10-speed with Ford now is okay from what I've heard. Let's see. I'm trying to catch up with questions here. Oh, look at this. This David Brown. My neighbor has an L8T and he hates it, but we're at 58 feet above sea level.
Yeah.
So there's a comment.
Well, I know that guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think he's commented on my videos too. Well, thanks for watching. Let's see. Lakewood. Here we go. ZR224 here in Colorado. See, that's a good setup because it's a boosted engine. That thing probably rips in Colorado.
He said he had to put in a new valve body, so he put in the next gen valve body at 13,000 miles or something.
Wait, hold on. His 24 the 24 ZR2 needed a or is this a I'm thinking ZR2, I'm thinking
no,
Colorado. This is a
6.2 or something.
Okay.
Well,
my mind caught Colorado and thought it was a ZR2 Colorado. So my bad.
He said 16,000 miles his valve body grenaded and he put in the next gen one and now it's shifting like butter.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Man, it sure seems like that's fixing issues. You know, I don't follow that stuff as closely as you guys do, but that seems like a pretty big mess, this 10-speed with GM.
Someone asks if Chevy's ever going to fix the 10L1000. Nate does not think so. I'm just going from what Nate tells me. He thinks that they have, and really what Cello said, that other GM former engineer, he said that they really made no intention to fix any of their problems with their transmissions over the years. They just keep putting them out. And if they fix the valve body problems, they'll probably get through warranty. And that's really all they're going for, is like get them to 100,000 miles. And that's all they really probably care about.
I'm wondering if
the ZF and Ram is better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wonder if they're going to drop, since they're dropping the Allison name this year, right? 27th, they're not going to have Allison on the hood. So they'll have a little bit more of GM's name behind it. You know, I wonder if it's somebody else's name, you know, and then now it's going to be under GM. Are we going to fix it? You know, who knows?
Well, look what Ram is doing. You know, they've got this 880 4th generation trans. I think it's 4th, right? Or is that, you guys know probably more, where the ZF transmission in the Jeep Grand Wagoneer and in the Dodge Charger, the 8 HP is being dropped for the new 880 RE. But they're saying this is a Chrysler manufactured transmission, but a ZF licensed. And man, my mind just keeps thinking, are we just talking about Allison and General Motors all over again? It's hard to not believe that's the case, but you're already seeing the name of Torque Flight used more often. And that's been the Ram name for transmissions back in the day. So what was General Motors' name for their transmission before the 6-speed in 2006? Is that when did the 6-speed come out, Rocky?
The Hydromatic 4? Is that
Hydromatic. I wonder if they're going to use that name again. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the 8 HP, getting rid of it's going to be an issue. It's probably I think one of the best transmissions in the market. That 8 speed's been, I mean, bulletproof. We've talked about that in our last videos with the Hellcat engines and everything they put in front of them.
Yep.
I mean, they just take the power, and you look at even the 10 speeds in the half-ton Fords. They've got Fords now backing the Whipple install, which is what 950 horsepower,
Beast.
and basically just throwing in a Whipple on there. Ford says we'll cover it in warranty. And those 10 speeds
Awesome.
are just eating that horsepower up. I mean, if you watch Cletus's video when he did his, they definitely put some abuse on it, and it didn't care. So.
I don't know how your Raptor R is, but my Raptor R, the 10 speed I had behind it, was the best shifting 10 speed I'd ever had from Ford. It is so crisp and perfect.
Yes, it's
never
smooth. It's great.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, I don't know what they do in that trans for that truck, but they dialed it in good.
Well, I gotta go eat pizza with the family, guys.
Yep.
I gotta bug out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Any other questions, guys? Feel free to send them. We'll still be answering in the comments on all of our channels. And we're going to be trying to do this more often. Apologize we hadn't been able to get to you. We all just been so busy. And I think we're going to have a lot more fun to talk about. And in case we don't connect before, hope you guys have a great Christmas and New Year's. Enjoy your time with family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.